There is something very, very strange going on in the skies around the world, and I think world governments know what it is, and they're trying to keep it hidden. And they're attempting to use mainstream science, psychological operations, and gaslighting to keep people from talking about this. We're going to cover this in today's video, and we're going to show some things that not a lot of people have seen, and questions not a lot of people have asked, or even thought to ask. Recently, we showed this image from Turkey, and many have said, well, it's just a lenticular cloud, and it's the way the sun hits it. If that's the case, those of you out there in my audience who like to disprove everything we show as pareidolia or apophenia, let me ask you a question about the scientific method. The scientific method says if you have a theory about something, test out that theory. Let's see if it actually is what you say it is in the real world. And in this particular case, my question to you would be, is if science already knows this is a lenticular cloud, please show me other examples of clouds that even generally resemble this cloud historically. Show me pictures of these clouds from the 70s and 80s and 90s that you used to develop your scientific method to prove this is nothing otherworldly or artificial. Show me those videos. Show me the links. You see, they don't exist. You see, they want to gaslight you and make you feel like you're an idiot for saying, hey, this isn't natural. And they want to call themselves scientists and say that they have all the answers, but they don't have any proof of the work done to say that for sure this is the case. Now, real quick, 2 minutes in, I always want to be diligent and say thank you to everyone who continues to show up here, regardless of what your opinion is. If you're a mainstream science believer and you just bow at that altar and worship, okay. As long as you can be civil and have some level of decorum here, you're welcome to engage in the comment section and make your point. So is everyone else. Those of you who have signed up over the Patreon channel, once again, every day, thank you. Thank you so, so much. I really don't have words to express how big of a difference you guys are making in my life. And I'm going to cover a real quick topic that's a little bit off topic, but I think it's important to clear the air with a good portion of my audience. If you want to sign up at Patreon real quick, $1 US per month, even less if you sign up for an entire year, fully refundable first 90 days, no questions asked. What's the big difference? Vimeo servers allow a lot more. They allow a lot more as far as what you can show and what you can say. And it's all about psychological operations. It's about thinking the thoughts they don't want you to have and asking the questions they can't answer. Now, real quick, off topic. Yesterday, we threw out this scenario that not a lot of people have thought about. Coming financial collapse, financial crisis. It's going to be a test of morals and values. I made the allegation, if you had a choice between getting your car repossessed or selling a gun because the government's giving away big money in gun buybacks, or taking a job that might be somewhere in a morally gray area, what would you choose? Because you could morally make the case for and against every single one of these, depending on your perspective. Now, a lot of ladies say, oh, Florida Maquis, you show these images, you know, and you talk about, you know, women doing these humiliating things. We talked about this, Serious Colony, about, you know, perhaps, you know, one person goes out on the weekends and makes extra money doing things that are borderline even legal. Ladies, half my audience, I know personally what it's like to do a humiliating job. Now, a lot of people look at this and they go, Florida Maquis, what's humiliating about this? It's a Vector truck and they're just cleaning out sanitary sewers. Sure, I did this job for years. In fact, when I first started YouTube, this was my job, my primary job, before I made enough money to be a YouTuber. I've still made videos, but I didn't make enough to actually pay the bills. So I had a real job, and this is what I did. I drove one of these trucks. Now, what's humiliating about this? Well, in this particular case, this is a good day. It's just cleaning out storm sewer. The little hole in the side of the road there where leaves and rain and debris goes. It's not clean, but it's no big deal. This is most of the job. And this is, that giant manhole out in the middle of the street is sanitary sewer. What's the difference between storm sewer and sanitary sewer? Well, sanitary sewer is where everything that gets flushed down the toilet in the entire neighborhood goes. That's right. Think about it. Anything that gets put into a toilet and the handle gets pressed and away it goes underneath that manhole, that's what's down there out in the middle of your street. The two systems are completely separate from one another. Sanitary and storm sewer do not mix. Now, what's the humiliating part? Well, this is a great graphic. The job, my job, you see there's this hose that goes down there, and sometimes these pipes get all clogged up, and you've got to go down there, and you've got to take this giant pressure hose, orange pressure hose, and on the end of it is basically a giant, what looks like an artillery shell with little water jets on the back of it. And it goes all the way up the pipe, and it shoots the water back at 10,000 psi, enough to cut your hand off, and it literally turns to a mist. Anything and everything the entire neighborhood has flushed down the toilet that morning. And I stood in that mist and cleaned out these sanitary sewers day in, day out, 5 o'clock in the morning, every morning. So yeah, imagine what my clothes smelled like. Had to have a special set of boots to go do it. Whole different set of clothes that I didn't even keep in the same closet as my regular clothes. And then it gets all pulled up. This giant vacuum air hose with its own engine, by the way, pulls it all into this giant tank. And then you go dump it. And in the evenings for extra money, as if dealing with the shit that came out one end was bad enough, I would go out and drive Uber and Lyft, and the people that would abuse and castigate and shame you as the Uber driver, I had to deal with at night. Of course, having to smile because you've got to earn tips. While in my spare time, making YouTube videos as well. So I didn't want to waste a whole bunch of time on this, but believe me when I say go out and do a job that might be morally ambiguous or even perhaps a little bit humiliating, I know whereof I speak. I know what I'm talking about. And people do it. It comes in all shapes and sizes. Young, old, it doesn't matter. And believe me, if I looked like I did when I was in my 20s, maybe I'd go get a job as a bartender. But I'm in my 50s, so I just wanted to cover that point. Now, what's going on in the skies? There are people out there that want you to believe that these circles, these perfect circles that are appearing in these flat clouds, are just a result of planes flying through a cloud layer. That's what they want you to believe. As if no planes have ever flown through these clouds before and would have created the same thing had that been the case 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Where are the pictures? Those of you out there who think that this is explicable by basic science and what mainstream science is saying, where is the evidence of the scientific method? If they believe that's the case, you would have to then do a hypothesis. Wait for one of these clouds to form, and then near an airport, and then take pictures or video and say, see, look, there's that plane. Look, there it is going through that cloud. And then lo and behold, here is this circle. But we don't see that, do we? That's just the explanation that that must be the case, because anything else would be, well, not provable. But if you can't prove it with the scientific method, any other hypothesis is just as valid. And here's the explanation. Sunday, 29 January 2023. Holy mackerel sky. Dozens of planes punch holes into clouds across the southeast. And they want you to believe this is just from a plane. They want you to believe that this is just from a plane coming through a cloud layer. It's ridiculous. In fact, I can even prove more about what's going on the planet than most people know. Some of you might remember during the Pentagon investigation that over in the Bahamas, on the seafloor, I found this very strange, perfect pentagon. And it seemed to be almost an arrow, and it was pointing. And I never could figure out what it was doing. What was its purpose? Why was it there? Was it just some strange seafloor anomaly? I can't even really explain what the blue, the royal blue thing is in the center, but I have an idea now. I have a really good idea now, and I think it has something to do with navigating the planet after the poles flip and the magnetism goes crazy. Don't think so? Let's zoom in here and check this out real quick. I know we're 11 minutes in, but this is going to blow your mind. This is the location, and I'll give it to you down in the description. Here's this pentagon, almost like an arrow pointing at something. So I drew a line. I drew a line as best I could right through the center of it. It's on a course of almost 240 degrees exactly. It goes over that strip in the Bahamas, and it ends up, believe it or not, right at the mouth of the Stranahan River and Lake Mabel. Now, this is a huge, huge deep water port on the east coast of Florida. It's also a major airport right here. Huge airport. Now, you would think, well, okay, that's one direction. What's the other direction? There's many people out there already typing, Florida Maquis, you can draw a straight line between any 2 points. That's right, but that pentagon points directly here. What's exactly the other direction on a course of 60 degrees? The little tiny island of Bermuda. So what are the odds? You see, drawing a straight line between any 2 points is one thing, but then when you include that third point, it prescribes one specific straight line. So you could navigate from the air, Bermuda, this waypoint right here points directly at the nearest deep water port on the mainland. Or, let's say you were here in the Bahamas and you didn't have any functioning compass. From an eye altitude of 5,000 feet, let's get there real quick. This is eye altitude, 5,000 feet. You could look down in the water and you could see an arrow pointing a certain direction. And then you could find a compass direction based on that. And then 180 degrees from that, you could not only go to the biggest deep water port on the east coast of Florida, you could go to the island of Bermuda. Now, tell me that that is not a coincidence. Or is a coincidence, however you want to look at that. The largest deep water port and Bermuda. When you draw a straight line between these two locations, Bermuda and where the Stranahan River comes out to the ocean, directly on that line is not just a pentagon. It's a pentagon that points in the direction of the line. Can you explain that as just coincidence? You see, that is the scientific method. What we just did there. That's saying, hey, I have a hypothesis that this isn't natural, and then we found other things to correlate, other pieces of information to correlate that go along with this idea. That this was some type of a navigation tool, perhaps a very ancient one. Perhaps that's how they navigated. Maybe magnetism in the Bahamas, I mean, it is the Bermuda Triangle, right? Maybe it can't be counted. Maybe the Atlanteans knew that it couldn't be counted on. And they had to create these waypoints on the seafloor. And this is just a leftover one. Because it would give them the ability to move through the air and find this teeny tiny little island way out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and be able to correlate those 3 points. So, just saying. Sometimes that's all it takes is just a little bit of research. So, I will leave it there, but it's been a long journey with YouTube. It truly has. It started out 6 years ago, over 6 years, 6.5 years ago. And when I first started doing YouTube, when I was driving the Vector truck and driving for Uber and Lyft, I remember the first time I made a YouTube video that earned $10. I was over the moon that I could actually go to Taco Bell and pay for Taco Bell with money that I earned making a YouTube video. Because I was doing that, driving for Uber and Lyft. And believe me, anybody who's driven for Uber and Lyft knows you get abused. Your vehicle gets abused. And you can't really say much about it because you're working on tips. Because they don't pay anything. And anybody who's ever done this job for a living knows exactly what I'm talking about. You stand in a giant mist of toilet flushings every single day. 8 hours a day. Believe me, ladies. I know it's not fun sometimes to get the looks, to get the leering and the snickers and the comments, but there are worse things out there. Lots worse things that people have endured. So, anyway, I will leave it there. But, thank you to everyone who has shown up here and gotten me to a position where I don't have to do that anymore. That's why I am so thankful. And why sometimes when I hear people say, oh, this is horrible, or that's horrible, or this other thing is horrible, I know what horrible is. I know what being pushed to your limit is like. And that's why I work so hard here to put up videos here every single day, sometimes twice a day, and at least every week to 10 days over at the Patreon channel. And then even occasionally I'll drop something over at the backup channel, the Florida Maquis alpha site, just to keep it going. It's a lot of work, working every day. But you guys definitely make it worth it. And once again, the Patreon angle that deleverages the advertisers is a big thing. I know a lot of you see some of your favorite YouTubers out there that stop in the middle and they'll do some type of a promo for some type of a phone game or some other gadget or gizmo for your house. I've never done that. Because that puts you in bed with different corporate interests that you may or may not agree with. One of the, when I was driving for Uber and Lyft, and I'll leave with this, one of the most difficult things that I would sometimes late at night deal with, and it wasn't actually what I was dealing with, is I would pick up sometimes waitresses, waiters, bartenders, from their job, and they would relate to me how much they had to tolerate from people, especially the sodomites. Some people said, Florida Maquis, you sound like you're in shape. Why don't you go be a bartender? I could never tolerate being a bartender and having innuendo thrown at me by a sodomite. There'd be no way. I'd walk out. I would literally walk out the first time some guy said something to me that was off color or anything like that. I'd be out the door. That'd be it. Apron would be gone. I just couldn't, there's no way I could tolerate it. So I had it a little bit easier as a driver because nobody really could see me. And basically it was just a lot of drunk kids, but I will leave it there. God bless. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.